Hi, welcome back. So today I'm going to cover the second fix for the smart home that we've built here on the project, and which is the most expensive cable. So there's lots of different cable for different purposes that we've installed as part of the build here, various different diameters, voltages for different functions. But which one of those do you think is the most expensive? What are the choices that you make? So here's the Loxone control panel. This was built by my Loxone partner, which is Hugh at Thames Valley Automation. So he did all the design. I covered some of that in the previous video, and built and cabled all of this platform off site. I've installed all of the cabling and done second fix for connections through to lighting, switches, sensors, speakers, those sorts of things, supervised by a local electrician. So we've been able to lay that cabling, get all of that tested locally, but work with Hugh to design the panel. So just some of the things that we've got in the panel that you can see here. So we've got a number of breakers coming in. So I think I've got 3 or 4 different feeds from the consumer unit that's in the garage. We've got breakers here that you'd want to keep this separately. For example, external lighting separate to 2 separate lighting radials inside the house. Some of those are on relays, some of them are on dimmers in the cabinet here, but obviously not wanting a fault from outside lighting, for example, to take out all the lights in the house. Also separate breakers for things like heated towel rails, which are a higher carrying capacity, and for the Loxone controller itself. And all of the equipment's installed in here. We've got a Loxone backup and power supply. We haven't connected batteries to that, but that's giving us lots of 24 volt power for LED lighting, those sorts of things, and for the audio system. We've got the Loxone mini server itself. A number of extensions. We've got a tree extension to connect to the switches and sensors that we've got around the house. Modbus. So Modbus connects from here down to a Daikin controller, which controls our air source heat pump. An airbase, which is a wireless controller. I don't have much air here. I'll come back to that on the cost of cabling and stuff later on. So that's really just connecting to a couple of air-based devices, so the garage door control, door and window sensors, those sorts of things. Then we've got 2 dimmer channels, so each of these has got 4 dimmers. So I decided to go with mostly dimmed 240 volt lighting. I did look at the choice of 24 volt lighting, and I might put some more of that in later with Loxone, but I didn't feel that the Loxone spots gave enough light, so you'd have to have an awful lot of those to give you the sort of lighting that I required. And then we've got I think 4 RGBW controllers, then whole home audio. So this is the purple box here is the audio server, and then I've got some stereo extensions. So we've got I think 5 or 6 rooms with audio in them controlled via Loxone. And then a couple of relay channels. So the relays here are doing lighting, zone valves for underfloor heating, boosting the mechanical ventilation heat recovery system, those sorts of things through that. I've also got in here a one home system, so this actually links Loxone through to Amazon Alexa. I'm not really using that, but that does allow us to have the voice control of the Loxone system, which it doesn't have by default. And I say Hugh did all of this wiring off site. So we've got really nice tidy wiring, and then when it was brought to site here, I'll show a video in a moment of a time lapse. I was putting this in here a few months ago. So we've got connectivity into the terminals at the top here for the Loxone tree connectivity, for the stereo extensions, so low voltage to this side of the cabinet, and then mains connectivity on the right hand side. So there is a cover that goes over this. Normally I've just got this exposed so that you can see what goes into it. So cable wise, what have we got around the house? So Loxone do their own cable called Tree. So if you can see that, it has the 4 connections that we have in there for the Loxone light switches and things like that. So power and the Tree sort of CAN bus connectivity. But what they also do is a couple of, I think, 1.5 mil cables for power for lighting. So that can simplify all of the DC lighting. I didn't actually use Tree because, as I said, we weren't going to do a great deal of 24 volt lighting in the installation here. So what we used, as recommended by Hugh, was actually KNX cable. So this is two pairs of a thicker gauge cable than you'd get with something like a Cat 6. And we've wired that with actually in a ring around the house, but only connected in serially, if you like. But that means we've got redundancy, that every device has got two cables going to it. So if one were to get damaged or a screw go through it or something like that, we've got that cable going through it. And the difference in price, I think the KNX cable is about a third of the price of doing it with Loxone tree. I think the Loxone cable is something like £300 a drum, and I paid about £100 a drum for the KNX cable. The colouring of those is not the same, but I just stuck with using red and black for the DC power and the yellow and white for the CAN bus connectivity, so we could be consistent across the build. Also put quite a lot of Cat 6 cable around the house, not flood wired as I said previously, but a few rooms have got access points, cables around the house for things like PoE for cameras, Wi-Fi access points, and a few connections to the television. We've also got speaker cable, so a 1.5mm silicon covered speaker cable, so two of those through to each room. I think I've probably spent a couple of £1,000 on cables we've gone throughout the house, and obviously the rest of the cabling is in mostly 1mm, 1 or 2.5mm twin and earth, depending on the rating of the power of everything that's going in there. And the wiring to everything here is all done in radials to each individual lighting circuit, so that I can switch with relays or dim the different lighting around the house. So I said at the beginning, which is the most expensive cable that you put in here? So looking at these, and I'm saying it's £300 a drum, £100 a drum, £100 a drum, £50 a drum. And the most expensive cable, there's two types of cable that I found that were quite expensive. The first one was the cable that you don't install long enough. So what I hadn't really thought about, I was trying to save money and put cabling into this cabinet here and just left something like a metre free, but hadn't really considered how the cables would need to route around within the cabinet here. So first piece of advice would actually leave a couple of metres spare for everything that comes into this cabinet. You've got room to move things around. I had to reinstall a couple of cables where they weren't long enough, or put a junction box up in the loft, so really don't want to do that. But the most expensive cable that I found through my installation was the cable that you forgot to install. So as I think I said on a previous video, we're in a bungalow here, so for most of the situations we've got access into the loft space and I can reinstall a cable. The couple of places, and the one where I forgot to do that, was we're going to have RGBW lighting around our kitchen island, and I've put ducting under the floor which has got all of the power for that island, the hot and cold water for that island, but I forgot to run a 5-core RGBW cable through to that island. So all is not lost, because we've got power there and I can use air as the wireless connectivity with Loxone. So I'm going to have to put an RGBW dimmer and power supply into the island. So, you know, failing to put that cable in that would have been £5 or £10 is probably going to cost me £150, £200 to put different connectivity for a wireless connection and power supply and enclosure and things like that in the island. So the way that I worked with Hugh, and I should have ticked that off and realised that I'd missed it, was the first thing you do with your design is come up with a cabling schedule. So, you know, a nice big Excel spreadsheet that says, where does a cable start, where does it go, what's its function, what cable type is it, and then ticking those off as you've installed them and tested them as you go through. And I had that one on the spreadsheet and forgot it at that point in time, because obviously that was very early on, that the floor was going in before we'd done any of the other cabling. So, you know, really do that spreadsheet up front of all of the stuff that you think you're going to need, and tick it off and check it as you go through. So let's have a look around at how we connect up some of the Loxone devices and other things that we've got around the house. So here's an example of the light switches that you're using. This is a Loxone Pure Touch, so it's a glass fronted switch. It's got a little light underneath, which is quite nice, and we can control lighting, volume of the stereo, and opening and closing of our blinds. And as you can see, I've got two lengths of KNX coming in here, red and black for the power on the orange and white connection, and then the green and white are the the tree data bus, and got enough coiled up in there so that we can manage that if we need to make those shorter or anything. And what I've done is cut those back because these are a little bit more flexible once you've taken the screen off the outside, and those switches just simply clip in, and I can control my blinds. You can probably hear those going in the background. Volume of the radio. I can stick the music on in here and adjust the volume, turn lighting on and off. So really quite pleased with those switches. One of the things, and here in the hallway we've got the same sort of touch pure switch and then a key switch here. This is to arm and disarm the alarm system for the house. Again, here in the hall we don't have speakers, but I can open and close the Velux blind up on the roof here with that switch, and I can turn on and off the lighting in the hall. And one of the other things with Loxone, and like a lot of people, I've played with other smart home technology previously, and a lot of that was app-based or switch-based. So that a lot of what we have in the home here is driven by presence detection. So we have these sensors, and I'll show a couple of those up in the ceiling, which have fundamentally a PIR, so a motion sensor as you walk into the room, that will trigger lighting based on a set of rules around time of day. It actually can trigger scenes, so you can come into the kitchen in the morning, it will automatically open the blinds, put the radio on, set the lighting on. You can choose those things that happen. But it's got a couple of additional things. One, it's got a lux sensor to see how bright it is, but it also has a microphone. So once you come into the room, you can set microphone levels for it to stay on if there's continual movement. So you're not sort of sat at the sofa and the lights go out and you have to keep waving your arms about. Okay, so the principal idea with Loxone is you shouldn't have to interact by using light switches in that first instance. So we use these pure light switches to switch through scenes. So if it was darker in here, I'd have walked in, the lights would have been on at the first setting. I can then just click that to cycle through slightly brighter or dimmer or off and switch those through. Also, if I've been listening to the radio in this room, I can control that also through the pure switch. Just pressing once to turn the radio on. I can adjust the volume up and down, press it twice to turn that off. And occasionally we'll use the tablet here so I can see what's going on around the house and control various different things. I can look at things like energy. This looks through at my Give Energy battery and solar system, so I can see what's happening there. So my battery is flat. We're pulling about 5 kilowatts at the moment with the heat pump, and I think the tumble dryer might be going as well. Various other things that we can control within here. I might want to be looking at what's going on with the heating in different rooms. I can see how hot the hot water is in the tank. I can look in a room, actually look at the history of the temperature of that room over time. So lots of data, but we don't need to interact with that tablet very often. This is actually, the app is managed by Loxone, and that's also linked to the presence detection. So this tablet turns off till you walk into the room, and then it'll turn on because it's triggered by the lighting, and actually will vary its brightness level depending on the settings that it's sent to it from the presence detector. So all quite nicely integrated together. So let's take a look at a couple of those PIRs. This is a surface mounted one that I've got in some locations. I've used some of these because we didn't have space, where I wanted to put it on the ceiling was next to a roof joist, for example, but they've also got a wider field of view. So this one's at the back of the hall, so it sees when we come out of any of the rooms into the hall. Reaches down most of the way to the door, but we've put an air door sensor on the door there, so when you come in at night, if it's dark, the lighting automatically turns on. And then in my study next door here, you can see I've got spotlights, and we've got a recessed motion sensor, presence sensor, so that's looks similar to the spotlights, a little bit neater look, but I say we couldn't really fit those in every location. But they work pretty well, and you can fine tune the audio levels for that, so that once it comes on, if you've got sound from the television or radio, or you're moving around the room, the lights will stay on. They won't turn off until it sees that motion is finished. And that's going to need a little bit of tuning, I think, but it certainly works better than just a standalone PIR. From this one on living with Loxone and how we're using the automation and those sorts of things, but we're not really living in the right rooms and things here yet. That'll be as the flooring and things goes in. We'll do all that fine tuning over the next few weeks, but I just want to give an example of some of the things that we've done. So we've got those motion sensors. There's one here in the bathroom. So one of the things that we've set up in here, obviously as you enter the room, the light will come on. Because we're a bungalow and the hot water tank's in the garage, it's quite a long distance from the hot water tank through to the bathrooms. So we've got a recirculating pump put there which will actually prime the system and run hot water around a loop to each of the bathrooms. But you don't want to leave that running all day, because it'll effectively run like a radiator and you'll just be losing energy through all of those pipes, even though they're insulated. So we've got this set so that when you walk into the bathroom on a morning and you trigger that, it runs the recirculating pump for 30 seconds, and that works brilliantly. You turn the shower on and we've got hot water straight away. Also, the same as that, we've got it set that when you come into the room at a certain time in the morning, it will trigger the towel radiator to come on for 30 minutes. But we could also look at making that a little bit smarter in the future. I've got the same pure touch light switch on the wall, so I can monitor the humidity. We're already using that to trigger a boost on the mechanical ventilation heat recovery system, and monitor what the humidity is like in the home over time. But potentially that could also be used to see, when have we had a shower, stick the towel radiator on, for example. And I'll be installing automatic blinds over the coming weeks, just waiting for those to be delivered. Those are going to be Zigbee controlled, but doing that through a Tahoma gateway. So I'm going to do a full-on video of integration of Loxone with Tahoma, with Zigbee and the Velux blinds that you've already seen. So I hope you found this interesting as to what we've got to so far on the second fix. As I say, I'll be doing deeper dives on some of the interfaces, probably with the air source heat pump, with the blinds, with the Horman garage door and those sorts of things in the future. We're just touching very close to 1,000 subscribers. It's been great to see all the comments, and I've had a number of people phone me up actually on the Loxone side. I found the same, that there's lots of installers doing videos of what they've done with Loxone, but there's not a great deal of the homeowner saying what the experience is like of installing and living with Loxone over a period of time. And I think, I'm pleased with the decision that we've made so far with Loxone. I think there's a lot that we can do still to automate a number of those things and scenes that we haven't done a great deal with yet, and I'll certainly cover that in a lot more detail. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel and click like, and if you've got any comments, I'd love to hear from you. As I say, I've spoken to several people that are looking at buying a Loxone system already, and more than happy to answer questions or have a quick call if that helps you. So thank you so much for your time.